My sisters and brothers, the Lord be with you. Reading from the good news of Jesus Christ according to St. Matthew. After Jesus' birth in Bethlehem of Judea, during the reign of King Herod, astrologers from the east arrived one day in Jerusalem inquiring, "Where is the newborn King of the Jews? We observed his star at its rising, and we've come now to pay him homage." At this news, King Herod became greatly disturbed, and with him all of Jerusalem. Summoning all of the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Messiah was to be born. "In Bethlehem of Judea," they informed him. "Here is what the prophet has written. And you, Bethlehem, land of Judah, are by no means least among the princes of Judah, since from you shall come a ruler who is to shepherd my people Israel." Herod called the astrologers aside and found out from them the exact time of the star's appearance. Then he sent them to Bethlehem after having instructed them, "Go and get detailed information about the child. When you have discovered something, report your findings to me, so that I may go and offer him homage too." After their audience with the king, they set out. The star, which they had observed at its rising, went ahead of them until it came to a standstill over the place where the child was. They were overjoyed at seeing the star, and on entering the house, they found the child with Mary, his mother. They prostrated themselves, and they did him homage. Then they opened their coffers and presented him with gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. They received a message in a dream not to return to Herod, so they went back to their own country by another route. The good news of our salvation. And so, my brothers and sisters, you probably have heard the story, I know you've heard the story, of the three wise men. But the question I have for you today, how many of you out there have heard the story of the fourth wise man? The fourth wise man, his name was Artaban, and he also had heard about the newborn king, Jesus, and wanted to go offer him gifts. And of course, we know the other three brought him the gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. So he bought 3 jewels. He bought a ruby, a sapphire, and a diamond. And these were the 3 jewels that he was going to present to the newborn king. And so Artaban set out on his camel to meet the other 3, and he was going to meet them in Bethlehem to present his 3 gifts. And what happened was, as he was riding through the desert on his way to Bethlehem, he saw a poor man laying along the side of the road. So he stopped to help the poor man. And as he was leaving him, the poor man had no money, had nothing to eat. So he gave him one of the jewels. He gave him the ruby. He said, "Here, take this for your sustenance." And off he went. When he arrived in Bethlehem, because he had stopped to help the poor man along the way, the 3 wise men had already departed. And the reason they departed was because Herod had already sent his soldiers to kill the firstborn child of every family, thinking that if he killed the firstborn, he would be killing the Messiah, the newborn king. And so they had left. And so when Artaban arrived in Bethlehem, he saw one of Herod's soldiers about ready to kill one of the children. And he took a second jewel that he had, and he took the sapphire, and he said to the soldier, "If you spare this child, I'll give you this jewel." And so he gave him the sapphire, and the child was spared. Now Artaban felt that he was a terrible failure, because he came to meet the newborn king, had missed his opportunity, and had already given away 2 of the jewels. But he still had the diamond left. And so Artaban spent a lifetime. He spent the next 30-some years looking for this child whose name was Jesus. And he couldn't find him anywhere. And he kept searching and searching and searching. And one day he found himself in Jerusalem. And when he was in Jerusalem, he saw that there was a man being crucified at the top of a hill called Calvary. And he said to someone, "Who is that man?" They said, "Well, that's Jesus." And he says, "This is the one I've been searching for. I am going to go now to save him." And as he was going up the hill of Calvary, the Roman soldiers were dragging this woman off to take her into slavery. And Artaban, in order to save the woman, took the last jewel that he had, the diamond, and he gave it to the Roman soldier, and the woman's life was spared. And at this, Artaban was totally despondent, because in that moment, he heard the words of Jesus on the cross, "Father, into your hands I commend my spirit." And in that moment, Jesus died. And Artaban began to cry. And he said, "Because I could have saved him. I spent a lifetime looking for the newborn king and never found him. And when I finally did, I could have saved him, and I did not." And at this, the heavens opened, and the voice came that whatever you've done for one of these, the least of my brethren, you've done to me. Come now into the kingdom prepared for you. And so that is the story of the fourth wise man. And as I thought about this, you know, we have in the Christmas story, we have shepherds and we have wise men. And, you know, the more I thought about it is I think we identify more with the wise men than we do with the shepherds. Why? Because with the shepherds, the good news was announced to them. It was almost instantaneous. Whereas with the shepherds, as with the wise men, they were on a journey. And so too, we are on a journey just as they were. Now keep in mind, their journey was an arduous one. These were priests, probably of the Zoroastrian religion, and they were traveling from Persia to go to Bethlehem. And that journey was a journey of about 1,000 miles. So this was an arduous, tough journey that they were on. And the Zoroastrians were a religion that followed the stars. And so they were following the stars. And that's the journey that they were on. But I'd ask you to note this, and it's Pope Benedict XVI in his encyclical on hope, who said that when we talk about the stars, the Star of Bethlehem, that in fact, with the coming of Jesus, the stars have been realigned. The whole world has been changed because Jesus has come. T.S. Eliot, in his beautiful poem, if you get a chance to read it, it's really quite touching. And it's the journey of the Magi. And what T.S. Eliot writes about in his poem is that their journey was a difficult journey, that they suffered along the way in this 1,000-mile journey. And they saw death, the death of the children killed by Herod. But what T.S. Eliot says, and this is very important, and you hear this in the last line of this gospel text, the wise men went back by another route. They changed the way that they were going. They're changed by Jesus. They're changed by the coming of the Messiah. And so too, on the journey that we are on, we're called to go back by another route, to change, to be open. And T.S. Eliot in his poem says when they go back to their village, that they were changed, but the people around them were not changed. And he called this another death that the wise men experienced when they saw those around them who had not changed. And what Eliot says in effect, what he says in effect was that now their mission in life was to call others to go on the journey that in fact they had experienced. And so, sisters and brothers, on this feast of the Epiphany, we're on a journey. And I want to suggest this, that the journey that we're on, what's important is that we learn to enjoy the doing and not just the getting done. Because on this journey that we're on, it's each day that God is calling us. Each day there's a star in the heavens that we're called to follow, and that it's different each day. And so it's not a question just of climbing the mountain and achieving the goal, but it's living every single minute of every single day as we continue on the path that we're on. And so, my sisters and brothers, the wise men found Christ but once, the three wise men. The fourth wise man, Artaban, found Christ many, many times in the people that he met along the way. You see, my friends, the point of the story is this, that you are the fourth wise man, to open your eyes and to experience the presence of God each and every day, and hear that voice that says, well done, whatever you have done for one of these, the least of my brethren, you've done it unto me.